It is. It's wonderful. We have the run too, because that was designed to let people know that the farm is more than just, you know, the barnyard and the vegetables. That there's 130 acres of beautiful, beautiful woods. There's a pond with ledges behind it. You know, it is a lovely spot.
Yeah, yeah.
So the Discover the Woods race is to give people a chance to see that there's a lot more to it.
Well, it doesn't get any nicer than this.
Well, this time of year is lovely too. Did you find Griff?
I think we want to get a shot of him like
Yes, Beach Farm.
Hey, dude.
Yeah, you're going to be photographed. You are. You're going to have something to say.
my favorite thing is his floppy ears.
Yep. The other dog that came from the shelter, Connor, same thing. One ear up, one ear down. Yep.
He's hanging down and the other's coming. I was like, that's the best thing. I love
know.
that.
Why object
It's a
to
special
that?
little quirk.
Exactly. You can see he's not a ball of fire. But he doesn't have to be. He loves to run. He loves to walk, and you know, back and forth to my house on Bow Street there. He trots right along. And Michelle Laney loves, who works at the shelter also,
Yeah.
loves to bring her two dogs, Lucy and Henry Laney. I love Lucy Laney. She sings. She puts her head up and howls. And
Does she have beagle in her?
I have no idea what they are, but they're those little, slight little tan dogs, very short-haired, with lots of oomph. They love to run.
Probably terriers.
Yeah, maybe some. But they like to walk with him, and even though they're both built for speed, he trots right along. He does. He loves other dogs. He wags that stubby little tail whenever he sees a dog. He never wags his tails for people. Never. But for dogs, he's so good. He tolerates cats.
He has.
Gentle soul, huh?
Yeah,
Dude.
a solid citizen, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
All righteous.
Do they?
Because, you know, people
People-
coming there kind of want the
They-
dog that's
yeah.
like, you know, we have a dog that's been there for ages, and he's like that. He's very independent.
Yep.
He's not needy. And I think it means he'd be a lovely, easy companion.
Yeah.
But I think it means it's harder, you know, if people don't instantly fall in love, maybe.
Right. He steps right along.
It was so good. And he sort of looked towards the camera as he came. That was excellent. That was
You can tell from his eyes he doesn't see all well.
Yeah.
Want a drink? He knows where his water dish is. Yes, you do. Oh. Oh, look. Look, Griffey. Okay.
Okay. So what is Holly Hill Farm?
So we are an organic farm here in Cohasset, Massachusetts, and we've been an organic farm, vegetable farm, since 1998. but the farm was in my husband's family for 5 generations, and my father-in-law had a large growing operation during World War II. But he was basically, he loved the land and he loved horses. So he had teams of horses that he used to work on the farm, but he also had riding horses. And all of the trails that we had runners enjoying yesterday were riding trails. So he also had a sawmill, and he was a sculptor of horses. He always loved animals. He always had dogs and horses. And
Perfect.
yep, we've always had dogs in our family, and our last most favorite dog, all of our dogs are favorites, came from the Scituate Animal Shelter. His name was Comet, and we had a stray dog, Molly, who took him under her wing. He was suffering from separation anxiety and couldn't be left, and she made it possible for him to be part of the family because she immediately adopted him. And he turned out to be just the love in all of our lives. So dogs are just part of our world, as are the cats. Everybody gets fed first, and then I get my coffee. And then we come over to the farm because one of our first jobs over here is to feed all the animals over here. So we start with the horses, and then the goats, and then the bunny, and then the chickens. And in the meantime, Griff wanders around. When he's tired of that, he goes into the office and he finds a nice soft bed. And that basically is where he spends his morning. He's got a buddy, Maggie, with a black lab, who belongs to Cindy Prentice, our director, and they are good friends. And Maggie shares her bed, and he shares his biscuits, and so they are just good, happy campers. He loves walking. He loves his walks. He loves his evening walk. It's harder now that the days are getting shorter, because when we go to farmer's market, I don't get back until dark. So he gets short shrift these days. And in the winter, when we had so much snow, it was hard for him because he couldn't get through those heavy snow drifts. He's got weakness in his back legs. I have to boost him into the car when we drive places. So his favorite time, I'd say, is spring, summer, fall, not winter. And that's true of me too. He's great. He totally ignores the cats, regardless of their activities, crazy though they are sometimes. He's fine with the horses and the goats. He's very friendly with all the animals. He is not eager to chase the chickens. He's a really laid-back fellow.
Perfect. Perfect.
Absolutely. Our four favorite dogs have been shelter dogs. Absolutely. I love the fact that they need a home, that something has happened traumatic, usually in their lives, and one has an opportunity to try to make things as good as possible for them in the times they have left. They're great companions, and I would recommend it heartily.
Yeah, I'm ready when you're ready. I don't want to rush you. You know, he was just so...
That's definitely his personality.
Yeah, he's just such a...
want to nibble on my microphone.
Yeah,
That
I
would be
do.
good.
I had a friend that was traumatized when he joked about it as a child because he had very white, sort of blonde hair, and like the petting zoo, he was stretching his hair. Like, hey,
Yeah.
but then again, no, nobody's stretching it.
Would you like to say a few words, Bella?
All right. Prepared a speech here.
How do you feel about
All right.
fall weather?
Here's things too, or barks at times.
Definitely.
It's,
Definitely.
Griff doesn't seem agitated at all. He's very often lying.
Yeah.
I should have tied them just a little bit higher, but the wind just came.
Well.
Because everything else looks pretty much the same at that
Well, it's
side
got
of
a
the,
rubber roof right now, so it
Right,
won't
right,
collapse. But
right.
this is the ice house where they cut ice from the ice pond.
You know, Cooper goes in the ice pond sometimes.
Yeah, a lot of dogs
He
do.
loves it.
Love it.
He just loves it.
And there's a wonderful picture of the ox cart down on Sandy Beach down here. Here the oxen getting shoes, because they used to have to go, they went on the pavement, so they built a stockade so they could lift them up. So oxen have cloven hooves, so they have to, each one gets 2 shoes, like a deer's foot. But here they are on Sandy Beach collecting kelp after a winter storm. I love that picture.
Like a straw hat. Huh?
It doesn't look like wintry dress to me, but
They must
these were
have-
cut on Nichols Road and then sawed at the sawmill here on the property and then shipped right back over and put into this.
Wow,
This is
look
my
at that.
father-in-law. He designed this tractor. It could do
Wow.
anything. It could creep or it could go 30 miles an hour on the highway. It was just a marvel. He was a
Look at
real
what's on that
Renaissance
log.
man. He
Yeah.
was a Romance language major at Harvard, but he wanted to live on this land and to use it. He was just an amazing person,
Wow.
an inventor and the radish tops.
They may have a lot now by the end of the day.
Good. I don't know how far down they went,
It looks like it's in the
What were
ocean.
they getting? They were getting the
Kelp.
The kelp
because that's the best fertilizer.
fertilizer.
Yeah. We still use it. We use it as often.
So I remember Jimmy pretty well. He was one of about 8 Podengos that we took in last year. He was our oldest at 12 years old. He came in and he was pretty emaciated, as most are, just because they come from areas where they're kept outside. They're usually used for hunting. So when they are older, they usually let them go in this area where he did come from. Jimmy was super sweet, so he's the type of dog that came right up to you and just wanted to be pet, but is very shy. So we had Jimmy meet Jim because he was named after him. I'll start over.
Yeah, that's fine. That's good. We gotta.
So although Jimmy was 12 years old, we were hoping that his sweetness and how cute he was would find him a home, because senior dogs are harder to find a home for, especially when you get up to 12, 13, 14. We tend to take in quite a few senior dogs because not a lot of shelters really are willing to take that risk, because there's a risk involved in is this dog going to be really adoptable and someone's going to give them a chance, or is he going to wind up at the shelter for quite a while? We were lucky that Jimmy, we named Jimmy after Jim, who went to go pick him up. And we kind of were hoping that that would be a good match, and it was. So it only took a few days, and Jimmy decided that Jim was him, and Jim decided that Jimmy was his. So it worked out really well. Not all senior adoptions are that fast, but surprisingly they find homes quicker than you would think sometimes, and then other times you're kind of waiting for that special match to happen.
Perfect. Perfect.
So when a dog first comes to the shelter, there's two different things that need to be done. They need to be caught up on all medical, and then they need to have a full behavior evaluation. So usually we let them settle in for a couple of days, and then their behavior evaluated, which involves kind of testing them to see if they're going to be good with cats, dogs, kids. Do they need a quiet home, or do they need more activity than your normal dog, and do they have any behavior issues that they need to work on? And that way we can kind of tell the public this is what you're looking at for possible issues, or what you're getting when you take a dog home. Medically, all of the dogs and cats are fixed. They're up to date on all vaccines, combo tested for cats, and heartworm Lyme tested for dogs. We treat all of our dogs that come down with Lyme with a month of doxycycline, which not a lot of shelters do, just because it is a little bit on the expensive side. We find almost 90% of dogs do have Lyme. So they're treated for Lyme. They're started on heartworm prevention and flea and tick meds and dewormed. So all of our cats and dogs are fully up to date on all medical before they go home. For senior dogs, that even includes that they've had a dental and senior blood work if that's needed. So stories like Jimmy are some of my favorite, just because I love to see senior dogs matched up with sometimes senior people that need a friend too. So Jim wasn't necessarily looking for another friend just because he didn't want the dog to outlive him, but they've both been great for each other. So we've had a lot of awesome senior adoptions where the people seem to need a dog just as much as the dog needs them.
Perfect. That's perfect.
So working at the shelter has its ups and downs, because you do see a lot of animals that are neglected or come from situations where they might not have gotten the care that they need, but adoptions tend to make it all worthwhile. I really like that we have a matchmaking process, so we're able to try and find people a pet that really fits in their life and that will really work out for them and the life of the pet. So adoptions definitely make the days go by much better after you see some of the sadder cases.
Great, great.
So adoptions tend to be one of the best parts of working at the shelter. You can see kind of a lot of sad situations happening, a lot of neglected animals that you can feel a little bit powerless in helping, so you do the best that you can. So the adoptions kind of, you kind of live for the adoptions. So especially senior adoptions tend to be some of my favorite, just because I feel like not only are we helping the animal get into a home that it really needs, but the people are sometimes just as in need of a friend as the senior pet. So senior to senior adoptions tend to be some of my favorite.
Perfect. All right.
So Kennedy the cat came in from Kennedy's farm stand down the street. It's a big, fluffy, Maine Coon looking like boy, super friendly, but he had a small bite wound on his head, and unfortunately that means that they have to be quarantined for 6 months. So he had his own room, but for 6 months he had a selected group of people that could hang out with him, so he was pretty desperate for attention. So we did the best that we could, giving him a ton of attention, but as soon as the 6 months were up, he found an awesome home. So he was pretty glad to get out of here, but he was lucky because a lot of 6-month quarantine cats don't really get the chance to even go through quarantine, because it's a lot of resources that you're spending on one cat for 6 months. But we're really glad that we did it for him, because he's a nice cat.
Okay.
If you're lucky, a shelter will quarantine a cat for 6 months, but unfortunately there are a lot of rabies quarantine cats, just because when cats are outside they do get into fights, and if they don't have a rabies vaccine they are then quarantined. So a lot of other shelters don't really have the resources to do that. We're lucky enough here that we are able to do that from time to time. So Kennedy was definitely lucky that he was in this area for sure.
Great.
All right, so we
Okay.
have quite a few programs for the community. Some are newer than others. So some of the newer programs that we have in the past 2 years are Trap Neuter Return program. So this past year we were able to trap and have a heart traps feral cats or stray cats that needed to get fixed. Get them fixed and release them if they were feral. If they're friendly, we got to keep them here, especially if they were kittens. So about 80% of those cats were able to stay here and get adopted out. So we have our Trap Neuter Return program. We have our HELP program, which helps people with food and medical care for their senior pets. We also have a low-cost spay-neuter program, so we're able to provide low-cost spay-neuter for cats and dogs for people within the community, and that's monthly. And then we also have just a help phone line, I guess you could call it. So the front desk helps with anyone that needs help with anything. So if someone calls and their cat or dog needs behavior advice, our front desk can offer behavior advice, where to go if you find a hurt animal, what do you do if you have a lost cat, what do you do if you find a cat. So we're able to kind of steer people in the right direction just via our front desk and our phone line, which has helped a lot of people in the past 2 years just by giving them the resources that they need.
Perfect.
Okay. So one of the most common questions that we get is, where do our cats and dogs come from? And they really come from all over Massachusetts, and for all different reasons. So we get in cats because they're strays, or people can't handle them anymore because they have too many cats. We get a lot of cats from situations where they have 10, 20, 30 cats and they're realizing that they need help. Otherwise, they're from owned homes where people may have allergies, they're moving and they didn't really plan, or they can't find a home. They have a baby and the baby has allergies, somebody moves in and they have allergies, so allergies, moving, or the animal having behavior issues are kind of like the top 3 reasons that they need to give the pet up. It could be financial, they just don't have the funding to do it anymore, or they might have a new medical condition. So we get cats and dogs in for all different reasons, and we take them in from all over Massachusetts. We get in a lot of our dogs from southeastern Massachusetts, from animal control officers that might not have the resources in that area, so we're able to bring up 5 or so dogs at a time when an animal control officer might be a little overwhelmed, and that's worked out really great.
All right, so are we a resource for the community?
We are definitely a resource to the community. We try to be as available as we can to people who need help. It's not just about adopting out animals or taking in animals in need. People can call us if they, geez, I'm short on food this month. We absolutely will have people come in. We have a bit of a food pantry here that they can look through. We offer low-cost spay-neuter services through the Loretta's Fund. That right now is just Scituate, but we're looking into expanding that. We also currently working with the Help Fund. We deliver food to senior citizens who need to keep their pets, and we're looking into seeing other ways that we can help them. Rather than just the monthly food deliveries. But it's also an opportunity for them to get visitors when maybe they're not seeing family regularly, and we feel it's really important to help people keep their animals in the homes, and if we could do that, that's excellent. Sometimes it's just a matter of support. People call us with behavioral concerns, and they just need somebody to kind of talk them through it, and we're there for them if they need it.
Perfect.
So Kennedy was a tough case. He was a cat who came in from Kennedy's, because we're very clever that way. He had a wound on him, on his neck, and unfortunately due to the state regulations, he had to be quarantined for 6 months, which for any animal is extremely difficult. But he got his own room, so a little small area. He was a stunning cat, but his personality was also he was just amazing. The volunteers were very jealous of the staff because we got to handle him during the quarantine and they didn't. But he was a doll. He just wanted to be with people. He was definitely somebody's cat at some point. And he made it through the 6-month quarantine with flying colors. You would never know he had been stuck in a room for 6 months. So he came out just as perfect as ever and went to an amazing home in Boston.
Great. All right.
When an animal goes home, that's probably my favorite part of the whole thing, of everything that I do. You know, especially we have some tricky animals here sometimes, and you always kind of wonder what is going to be the right spot for this animal. And when that person finally shows up, I mean, there's nothing like it. You feel successful. It makes all of the tougher things that you've dealt with that week or that day kind of fade away. And it makes you remember why you do it every single day and why you put your heart out there. So.
Perfect. Exactly what I wanted. That's perfect. Okay.
We had more resources. That's a tough question. It's never ending what we do. I think we would focus a little bit more on being that resource, on offering people, you know, the spay-neuter services. You know, right now we can have the spay wagon come and we can offer them a discounted service, but if we, you know, we're able to cover more or give people who can't afford $75, tell them that's not a problem, you can come in and get your animal fixed. Vaccination clinics, just more outreach into the community, educating people, I think, is the really important thing to do. And I think that's the reason why animals end up homeless, is because people just need that education. So that, I think, to kind of stem it from the where it starts is the key, and that's what I would hope we would focus on.
Perfect. Perfect.
Our animals come from a variety of places. We get few of them as strays. This particular area has a great reclaim rate. So a lot of owners, if their animal goes missing, they know it and they want it back. So very rarely strays. We get some owner surrenders depending on if they're having behavioral issues. You see a lot of people running into housing problems right now. Apartments aren't allowing pets, apartments aren't allowing certain types of pets, and so, you know, we get calls about that. We do like to reach out and help other shelters. So we have the luxury of not always being full, and that's excellent, but some shelters are. And so I think it's important for us to reach out to them and say, we have room, how can we help? I think that's the majority of, particularly the dogs, where we get our animals. Cats, this time of year, we're coming to the end of kitten season, so there are actually a lot of feral colonies out there, and I don't think people realize it. You see stray cats around, and that's just the way it is, but they need help too. And even if they don't want to live with us, even if they don't particularly like us very much, we can still help them. So we get a lot of kittens from feral colonies, but thankfully that's tapering off. But yeah, kind of all over the place, always in Massachusetts though.
That's